Gambling addiction destroys lives. It breaks you down over time, mentally and physically. It is also incredibly destructive financially. That's what I'm going to talk to you about in this video. Guys, it's Matt. I am a compulsive gambler in recovery, and I'm your mind and movement mentor here to help you. So I'm not qualified to give any financial advice, and this is not going to be this is how you should manage your proportionate your debts and your finances video. This is going to touch maybe briefly on a bit of that, but it's going to be, in my opinion, more importantly, some mindsets that you will need when you are stopping gambling, you are moving into recovery for gambling addiction, as am I. Currently 9 months and 4.5 days. So the first thing that's important to remember is you have to get out of the fog. You are now out of the chaos. You're out of the madness, which is a great thing. But you have to essentially write off all of the money that you have lost gambling, which is not easy to do. I found this an incredible struggle, but I see it as the only way. If you are still balance sheeting in your mind of how much you've lost over what period you think you can recoup money, you are still in the chaos and you are going to be pulled back into gambling behavior very, very quickly. So you have to kind of have that mindset of what's done is done. The past is the past. Don't look back, it messes with your neck. Insert whatever cliche you want about being in the present and moving forward, because it will poke at you and it will frustrate you. It will draw your attention back to maybe how much money it was, what that buys in the real world, even though if you're anything like me, it was your gambling kitty that you just did not want to spend anything on other than gambling, despite the fact that the brain would lead me in that direction from time to time. So that is what is required, I would say, probably as a starting point. And kind of what dovetails into that as well, and I was also terrible for this, is, this is easier said than done, especially when you are in that anhedonic head state, which I've spoken about many times, which is where normal life just doesn't fully add up to the state that you've been in when you're gambling. You're experiencing kind of that compression in brain chemicals, adrenaline, dopamine, whatever the sciencey stuff is, that you are now in what feels quite mundane, normal life. And things that used to excite you, cooking meals, going to restaurants, meeting up with friends, nature, dog walking, dancing, whatever, are just kind of a bit meh, because they're not the roller coaster that the parasite of addiction has taken you on. And linked into that mindset is no more hypothetical bets. I was also terrible, absolutely terrible for this. I mentioned in the past, the poster boy of suckers for the gambling fallacy. If I'd been betting on Manchester United over 2.5 goals and there'd been 4 in a row where there'd been low scoring games, and then the 5th one is this weekend, but I'm not gambling anymore, in my mind, it would be like I've got the bet on. I would be trying to will the other outcome to fruition in my mind, despite the fact there was no money at stake, because I'd be like, please don't let what I would have bet on come in to reinforce that I made the wrong decision to stop. But like I've said so many times before, it's not about any particular outcome. As compulsive gamblers, no money is ever enough. So it's about your relationship with the act of gambling, not any did it win, did it lose, etc. And that's very, very important to remember. So I told you this video wasn't going to be, despite about the title suggesting fixing finances, it's not going to be let's get a balance sheet out and work on your debts. This is going to be kind of mindsets, because that is another really big one. This really used to, it would be like a monkey on my back for a couple of weeks after stopping gambling. And that would be the time that I would be most susceptible to just bouncing back into the fog, because I didn't really have the habits or the traction or the momentum built up to go back into the real world. And I'm still really pissed off about, one, that I've had to stop because normal life doesn't compare, and two, now all these results that I definitely would have done because the last 3 in a row let me down are coming in, and it's annoying me. So that is also very, very important. I think also there are some nuts and bolts for finances. Like I said earlier, when I was in the madness, I would often tell myself, if this bet wins this weekend, I'm going to treat myself to that watch I was looking at, those pair of shoes, pair of jeans. I'm going to go and do something lavish that is potentially a little bit outside of my pay grade. And I would never do it because I would just gamble, and the kitty was the kitty for gambling. But in the same way, if you ever start a diet and you're really good for a while, you almost need like a few small wins, as if it were. So you go and have a bit of cheesecake or something, so that it kind of spurs you to go on again. It rewards you for your efforts, and it makes you think, okay, I can do this kind of carrot on a stick like reward thing that will help push me forward. I'm a big believer in that. I feel like if you hit X milestone without gambling, as much as you could be up to your eyeballs in debt, it's good to treat yourself, maybe somewhat modestly, to acknowledge the period that you're at in recovery. Other people might say opposite of this, and if you were getting kind of nuts and bolts, potent financial advice, they would say, no, minimize the debt, minimize the interest, get the creditors down as soon as possible. And I agree with that, but I also think that you've kind of got to keep yourself sane, and you've almost got to seduce yourself into recovery a little bit. And if you go from essentially only eating McDonald's to only eating broccoli and asparagus, it's going to really feel a bit ugh. Whereas you can kind of find a way to transition into a new life and making it a bit enjoyable at the same time. So maybe whatever interval you hit with your recovery, actually go and do something for yourself that is quite nice, that is like a little bit of a treat, and don't feel hugely guilty about it. Again, this is a matter of personal opinion, but if you owe a lot of money out, that can be dealt with at times. You've got to give yourself a little bit of a pat on the back at appropriate intervals, because you want to continue to reinforce the behavior with yourself to make it worthwhile to keep going. And if you do that, you can still take care of the external debts and things, but get into a bit of an upward spiral really quite quickly, which just fuels you. Another tip I was once given, if you've got like a list of creditors, people that you owe money to, again, big matter of opinion, subjective one, I would always prioritize paying people first, financial institutions second. Again, you may not agree with that, but I think maybe from a personal integrity point of view, if there's someone that you've been given the runaround that you borrowed some money off when you were in the fog, in the chaos, I would make a point of making amends in that direction first. Often because those ones will be the ones that take up the most mental bandwidth in your mind. And when you're trying to reinvent yourself, go off into a new direction, you want as much of your kind of positive reinforcement and faculties to go forward to keep moving in the right direction. So that can be like a little tip. And also, again, if you want to list out your creditors, there can sometimes be a little bit of dopamine of, or scratch that one off, and you see it as a visual representation kind of coming down a little bit, which again kind of reinforces that journey that you're on, moving away from the madness into a different person that's getting organized, sorting things out. And again, counterintuitive, but another little tip for this can often be to pay the smaller debts first, because you get that dopamine, that personal satisfaction of, okay, I had 6 creditors and now I've only got 5. I had 5 and only got 4. Even though the amount is not moving down that much, in terms of the net volume of the amount, there's something powerful about, well, it was 6 and now it's 5 and now it's 4. And say, to protect yourself from falling back into the madness, you want to do as much as you can to make this new reinvention of yourself stimulated by the recovery journey, and give yourself little moments to pat yourself on the back and keep it moving forward. So like I say, no official financial advice. What I know about finances as a compulsive gambler could be written on the back of a postage stamp. So I'm not going to tell you how to run your life in that direction, but just a couple of tips that you might find useful. I know how hard it is when you've been in the fog coming out of it. And I've said this in other videos, with that anhidonic headspace, the way that it feels, the addiction pecking at you to come back, and you trying to reinvent yourself and move forward. It's very, very difficult. You need, a lot of it is between your own ears, and there are little brain hacks and things that can make life easier than not so easy. And that's what you want to do. You want to release the resistance and make recovery become this attractive path for you to take, where things get better and positively reinforced along the way. So I hope that helps. It's just some tips from me as a compulsive gambler. Thanks for watching, guys. I make these videos for people who struggle as I did. I was a compulsive gambler for almost a quarter of a century, and I'm incredibly passionate about this topic because I only see the trajectory of the numbers getting worse, and it worries me, and there's no signs of that slowing down anytime soon. So if you interested in these topics, please subscribe. It helps me reach more people, and I respond to all the comments. I love hearing from you guys. Comment below with your personal experience, and I will see you on the next video very, very soon. Take care.